I would like to welcome everybody to our first episode of the Valuers Corner. As you all know, I'm Jared Curry and I'm the head and director of Asset Valuations Group. I'd like to introduce Chris, who's here from BPW Group. Chris?
Thank you for having me on the podcast. I appreciate you obviously putting me on the first episode. I look forward to sort of chatting in depth about a few different topics.
What would we do without a business plan?
Jump straight into it. All right. What would we do without a business plan? That's a hard one. So businesses that don't plan at all, they plan to fail, right? It's always good to have some kind of plan depending on the situation. There's different types of obviously scenarios or purposes that people come for a plan. Sometimes they don't realize it, whether it's applying for a grant, requiring finance, looking for investors, or just presenting to a landlord, credit license, building license. There's lots of different scenarios why people need business plans.
Yeah, that's interesting. I've also found when I do business valuations, the one thing these businesses lack is business plans.
Yeah, look, it's not at the forefront of a business owner's mind because they sort of get tunnel vision. They get stuck into, I guess, the day-to-day topics and tasks of business, looking after staff, worrying about finances. But sometimes they've got to realize they've got to take a step back and actually have a outside look in on their business. That's what a business plan does. It takes it back to basics and plan for the future. So,
yeah. Well, look, whether it's in liquidation, whether it's a business buyout, acquisitions, I believe it's important people have business plans. That's also why I have you on our first episode today, because I think it's vitally important that companies understand how important a business plan is. But yeah, look, the one big question I'm not only going to ask you, but everybody is like, Chris, how do you perceive value?
That's a good question. I guess the first thing a lot of people jump to in value is a dollar figure or something along the lines of an actual number on a sheet. But I guess for me personally, how do I perceive value? I look at it, value for me is time, whether it's family, whether it's in business. Something you can't get back is time, right? So with family, making sure you do the right things in business to create more time for your family to spend outside of work. But in business, exactly why I do business plans. If you're spending time on things that aren't going to help your business grow, you're wasting time, you're wasting potential revenue, income, and growth. So it's very broad, but time for me is value.
Yeah, well, I think that's very important. You can't get back time, and you actually can't get back the time you spend with your family. And another thing, do you set yourself goals? And no, wait, before we go on about, hey, I do or I don't, I'm not talking about in a business sense. This is more aimed in your personal life.
Yeah, definitely. I think funny thing is, how long ago did we meet?
20 years ago?
20 years ago, yeah. I think we went on a different journey with each other. I went through the whole corporate ladder. You did your own family business, and that's why you're here today, running a very successful company. But back to the topic of goal setting, I personally actually never really set goals. I just sort of went with the flow, just worked hard, got promotions, did things, and then coming back in a round circle and obviously working in a business space with you, you actually taught me to self-reflect and set goals, because without goals personally or business, how are you supposed to work towards something in the future? And it's similar to a business plan. It's but just personally. So initially, no, I didn't. I sort of just went with the flow and did what I wanted. But then you're like, hey, don't you want a house in the future? Don't you want to save for something? Don't you want to go on a holiday? I'm like, hey, yeah, I do. And he's like, well, what are we going to do to get that? What kind of goals are we going to set in business and personal to make that happen? And that's something that I sort of took away, reflected myself, and that's helped me grow as a person as well. So today, yes, I do set goals, because without those, how you're supposed to achieve something, even if they're small or big, those small goals you achieve, it makes you feel good, makes you feel better, and then you want to keep achieving goals.
Yeah, no, that's very true. Look, also before this podcast, we had a bit of a conversation about advisory. I think is like one topic a lot of businesses like to go down is advisory. How does that work? And I like what you said to me around, it's all about numbers, right? Which was one part, but you also made it known to me how important it is to set goals, and because you've set those goals and you've hit those goals, it's going to enable you to spend more time with your family and go away and do things. And on that topic of family, do you have any dogs?
Family, yeah. Well, I guess for me, as you know, a dog is family, right? So obviously you got mum, dad, people in my life, but pets are your family, right? I do have a dog. It's a just over a year old golden retriever. Beautiful thing, almost too intelligent. She catches me out sometimes with doing some naughty things, but eats the toilet paper at the moment, digs holes in the yard, but you love them. You sort of, I didn't realize I hadn't had a dog in a long time, or my own dog actually, and they make you a bit more selfless, because dogs, I guess as a human, you want to be more like a dog because they're selfless. They just, every time you get home, you're the first thing they see that you think of, and yeah, having a pet has changed my life because I actually care about something more than myself for once.
Yeah, that's hard to believe, right?
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I'm not as selfish now, but yeah, I get up in the morning, do a walk, 5 a.m., 5:30 with the dog. It's not for me, it's for her, but it's actually clears my head in the morning, sets me up for the day. Take her to the beach on the weekends. I'd probably sit at home and play games or sit in a dark corner and read or something, but yeah, she gets me out of the house, and yeah, it's the greatest thing I've ever done is have a pet. So
yeah, I did like how you mentioned digging holes in the backyard. You should have specified whose backyard, right?
Yeah, only yours, only yours.
Yeah, but as you all know, Chris's dogs and my dogs get along really well. They're literally like family. But I don't know what we do without them.
No.
But look, not to get too much off topic, although dogs is a good topic. What is the craziest thing you've done with BPW Group? And not in terms of not in terms of what plan you've done for what company or that, but crazy. Like, what have you jumped in head first with?
It's a good question.
I was hoping I could stun you in this podcast.
Yeah, you have stunned me.
Yeah,
Sort of.
It's very hard to.
I was about to say something else, and you sort of threw me off track there. Head first. That's a good question. Actually, don't have an answer for that.
Well, if you want to ponder, I can tell you the craziest thing we've probably done collectively.
All right, you go first.
We bought an NDIS company. How did you forget that? We're
That's
so
true.
left field
Okay.
about what we did. But
I was actually
yeah.
thinking about other clients, not myself, but yeah, it's now you've sort of opened my mind up about what we did. Yeah, I guess the business plan side or the advisory side managed to secure a few contracts with some big compliance companies across Australia. The last 2 years been helping companies obviously enter the market in NDIS, help them grow, create business plans, advisory, websites, marketing, whatever it is to help them, I guess, get a foothold in the industry. A lot of these guys, women, men, whoever they are, business owners, are generally skilled workers in the industry, and they actually don't know how to set up a company. They don't even know what an accountant is. They've just worked for, I guess, a business owner or a company themselves for so many years, and they've realized, hey, there's an opportunity in the market here for me to utilize my services outside of that. So I've been helping business owners for the past 2 years develop, get into the market, understand the business. And through that, I think with you, we've actually understand the model of the NDIS, how it works. And we decided to purchase a holistic care provider, which you could call it like a side hustle, but it's more of a passion as well, because we're helping people not as fortunate as the average person. And it's very rewarding. Business plans is just as rewarding, helping business owners grow and achieve things in their life. But this is something different, something outside of, I guess, the whole corporate services side. And yeah, love doing it.
Yeah, well, we valued a couple of NDIS companies over the years. They do fetch a great return. And I think one thing we know as valuers is you have to have that registration in place in order for it to be worth something. And what's the value? Well, we sort of look at your profit and loss statements, not so much your turnover, but what contracts you have in place. Like, that always influences your capitalization rate as well as the goodwill components of a company. And these companies we have valued, they have contracts in place, especially with your short-term accommodation, medium-term accommodation. They could have connections in hospitals, and it's just crazy. Like, no one's heard about this topic in the real estate industry. Also, to the point where banks won't fund it because, an example of something I had with a SDA home was a guy wanted to go, he came to us for a property valuation and he says, look, I don't know how we're going to value this. And I'm like, what do you mean? And he's like, well, the bank won't fund me. Well, even if I put down the deposit, they won't loan me the money to get this home up to standard for the NDIS because they don't believe me that our return is 20% a year on the value of the property. Now, tell me that's not good investment and a good way to get into the real estate market.
Oh, it's definitely a great investment, but it's sort of something that people go, is this a realistic figure? Is it something that someone's just throwing a number out there? But we understand with the provider that we have that it is realistic.
Yeah.
There is a great return. I think COVID, sorry about saying COVID, but it's thrown a spanner in the works, definitely with the banks tightening up, interest rates rising, potential, obviously, things happening on the horizon, but it's crazy return.
Yeah.
On
Well,
property.
based on the rising interest rates and back to our topic about, you called it passive income, but to you, how important is it with the the ever-growing inflation, right, to have passive income to get through day to day?
Oh, definitely. I think any multiple revenue streams is key to obviously growing or at least having good income, good methods to be able to stay up to date with the increasing costs for living. You can see it in the news today. It's crazy. Fuel prices at $2.50, 60, 70, increase in goods going up. It's crazy. And it always comes back to both our businesses about how, let alone the average person in a household going to survive, but a business going to survive. Cost of goods going up. So when we do a cash flow forecast, understanding, okay, what is your income? What is your cost of goods? What are your expenses? And with everything obviously increasing, we've got to be very accurate with what that looks like. So does that mean you need to increase potential clients by 5-10 more a week to be able to create that income, to be able to make sure that the company stays profitable and grows in the future? So, and then that flows into the household. So the dividends that you get paid, is it enough to be able to cover the costs at home? So there's a lot of things you've got to think about, and that's why I'm here, sort of talk about that, advise, help you understand pathways forward and make sure that it's actually accurate. You know, you're just throwing numbers on a page that look good, that goes to an investor, they're going to see straight through that. So it's about being accurate and understanding the product or service that you have.
Yeah. Well, I know you've been doing this service for a while, advisory, of course. I guess the second you bring someone into the boardroom or you go into their boardroom, what's the first thing you tell people?
I wouldn't say tell. It's the first thing I ask. I want to get to know more about them. How's your day going? What's happening? What did you do on the weekend? And it sort of surprises them a bit. And it surprises me that it surprises them because it's all about relationships for me. It's not about the first putting an invoice through and just getting paid for what you do. These are long-term relationships I want to build with business owners. It's not a one-off. It's about growing with them into the future and staying with them on that journey. So when I ask them how's their day, how's everything going, it gives me a bit of insight into them, see where I can relate to that business owner, whether it's pets, family, hobbies, interests, and then you grow as a relationship, not through just business, but understanding each other. So that's the first thing I do. Yeah,
well, that's interesting. I guess we're going to get a couple of young subscribers, we hope, and young listeners in our podcast. But
definitely,
if you were to give them a piece of advice, given all the companies you've worked with, what's the first thing they should do? And not so much get a business plan, because we'd hope they'd do that anyways, right? But what's the most common problem you see in a business that they should have fixed up from the beginning, from the word go?
I think it's the advisors around you, whether it be a lawyer, an accountant, a marketing firm, a valuer, someone that plans for them. I think there's so many service offerings out there, so many people that offer different kinds of services, but it's about having that round table approach where you can have someone that you can trust. They're not just going to charge you obscene amount of money for what they do. They actually want to help you grow. So I think the first thing is relationships. It's building that relationship, or at least knowing or meeting someone that you know in the industry that can direct you to people, because they're not going to refer people unless there's a good rapport between them and the person they're referring to. So that's the biggest thing. Yeah, well, I can agree with that. Like reading books and going down that road, you're like the 6 people you hang around with. And also in business, I sort of wish, like when I first started out, like I've been through like transport companies. We've been through this My Body Quest years ago that involved trying to sign gyms up for data.
We've done stuff like, well, we're still in the auction game. But I guess I would probably be 5 years ahead if I had a group of advisors to say, no, don't do this. Yes, do that. And also build into their network, because your network is so important. It actually sort of builds out who you are.
Definitely.
But another thing I can add in terms of that, not just network, but keeping your word, because your name and your word is everything in business.
It's true. I'll jump in there. It's especially in Brisbane. It's like a small town, really. Your name gets out there pretty quick, and if you're not doing the right thing or not looking after people, people find out very quickly. So your brand, your reputation is everything, and building that network and building that trust takes a long time, and that can be broken in an instant. So that's the biggest thing, is build those relationships and build it on trust.
Yeah. But yeah, and also I heard something else that I guess the BPW Group is looking to start is a complete startup package for businesses. Now, from what you've explained to me, Chris, it starts off, look, they could have a running business, correct? But if they didn't, can you explain from start to finish what BPW Group is going to be offering? We don't have to talk about fees and how much it's going to cost, but from, let's say, the business plan to what we can offer to the end goal.
Yeah, definitely. I think it starts with the advisory piece. So you sort of jump into a company, we create a roadmap. So a couple-hour session, jump in, do something called a vision canvas. So it's looking into the future. What does it look like? What does your business look like in the next 3 years? And you draw that. It's about thinking outside the box. It's a creative mind thing. It sounds different to just writing goals, but you've got to think outside the box and challenge yourself. This flows into the business model canvas. So who are your key partners? What's the cost structure? What are your income streams? What type of marketing you're going to do? And there's a whole range of different business model avenues that you've got to write down and understand your business. I'm there to support, but it's about you understanding your business as well, because you're going to be the driver, you're going to be the champion of your business. Yeah. So it flows into something which I call the 5 bold steps. So you've got to create a vision, your values. How do you get to your vision? What are the 5 steps you're going to take over the next 1 to 3 years to be able to achieve the vision of the business? Yeah. And then from there, we do a few other little tasks, and then we create your roadmap. What does that look like from today, 6 months, 1 year, 3 years? And you stick that on your wall, and you go, okay, we're at 6 months. Why haven't we achieved this goal yet? Yeah. Then that roadmap, we create a little business plan. This is something that's an evolving document. It's always good to have off the start. These are things you can apply for grants with. You can go for finance. You can pitch to other potential shareholders or people that want to buy into the business about the growth of the business. So we create a business plan on top of the roadmap. This involves things like a SWOT analysis, who are your competitors, full industry market research, so understanding what is the market, how do we fit into the market, what is everyone else doing. It might be all the same price for a product, but we might want to go more expensive, high end, charge a little bit more, or we might want to go a little bit cheaper and reduce our cost of goods. But how do you fit into that market? How do you want to be different from the average person? The biggest thing I found, and this is a funny one, so people starting yoga studios, so I've done a number of them, and they get so focused on logo, brand design, colors, and all that's great. But I pulled an industry report and I said the number 1 key success factor in Australia out of 250 key success factors for a yoga studio was car parks. So you can figure out the best space, the best looking space, but if you didn't have car parks, you're the least likely to succeed. So your location is actually key about that yoga studio, let alone logo design. All that plays a part, but if you're spending so much time on that, not realizing as an industry how to fit in, you're going to lose, right? So we do a whole industry report, risk management, strategic goals, and financials. So understanding what that looks like. When are you going to hit a profit if you're investing 100,000? What kind of working capital do you want to have at the start to be able to pay wages, pay rent? And at what point, depending on the clients that you're going to access through marketing, is that going to hit? And when I say marketing, we also do a side marketing plan, strategic marketing plan that involves obviously things that work with your industry, because not everything works with certain industries. Facebook ads might work with one, Google ads another, social media might be key of another. All of them together might actually be good for that. So we create a marketing plan that you can take to your marketing company, execute, or you can run through us as well and actually stay with us on the marketing journey. So that's all part of that package. We can do websites, logo design, creation, recreation. So it's sort of a holistic approach to that, and all within a reasonable price, because we want to grow with you and stay with the company. So that's essentially in a nutshell what the package is. There's a few other key elements I might have missed there, but it's really just a get started package.
I think what interested me most about this package was you also said that there were going to be lawyers and accountants you could recommend, which could be included in the price, as well as all the way to a end angel investor. Because I believe you have a panel of angel investors.
Yeah, look, I'm just about to go on actually the Brisbane Business Hub as a advisor. And then within that, they've actually got angel investors, and they do a really cool, I say cool because I'm not pitching to them, but they do something similar to Shark Tank, where someone's got to go forward, pitch to the angel investors about why they want someone to invest in their business. First thing that our angel investors have said to me is they don't have a business plan. They might have a pitch deck, but there's too much information on there. They don't really get to the point about what is the value of my business? Why do I need this money? How am I going to use this money? And what is the potential growth of the business?
Wow.
They just put through why their product's better than others. They don't actually get to the nitty gritty. So I'm going to be working with them to actually improve, I guess, the pitches for these people as well. And that's how it works.
That's so exciting. Like, back to the Shark Tank thing, I can give you a fun fact about me and Asset Valuations Group.
Yeah, interested.
Yeah, well, I can't give you names, but we actually valued a company and they took it on Shark Tank. And they actually gave the company the funding because of my valuation. They went all the way out and it was insane. Like, I didn't know in the beginning it was for Shark Tank. And then obviously within the valuation report, you have to ask them, well, who are the intended users? And they go, it's going to be me and it's going to be obviously the board members of Shark Tank. Legally, I don't know how that would have looked. And obviously you have to put in disclaimers and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, they called me up like a month later and like, Jared, thank you. We got the funding. So that's a bit of a fun fact about what we do and how we do it. And, you know, bits.
I didn't actually expect that when I said Shark Tank, but there you go.
Yeah,
that's
well,
an interesting fact.
I guess that's the best thing about a podcast is we just keep chatting and chatting and you never know what comes out of it, Chris. But
exactly right.
Look, something I do want to get into as well is, look, you want to ask certain questions around like business and everything, but you got to make it a bit more fun, right? Now, I know what I wanted to be when I wanted to grow up, and it wasn't a valuer. What did you want to be?
That's a funny one. I actually didn't have... I was what type of kid was I? Very erratic, didn't know what I wanted to do. A lot of people actually do have a clear goal, clear sort of job they want to do when they grow up. I actually had no idea. It was hard enough just to keep me at home, not running around the streets, stealing golf balls from the golf course. I was a bit of a rat bag when I was younger, skateboarding, riding bikes, tearing skin off my knees. I was always good with people, relationships, building rapport. If anything, it was going to be sort of business development, sales, and that sounds, excuse my French, a bit wanky, but I knew there was something about just the relationship building side of things that I'd be good at, and I didn't know how or why I'd fit into the market with that. And organically, I'm here today, but it sort of took me learning through the corporate ladder, learning different things in retail to build those skills to a point now where I sit in front of business owners and talk to them, build relationships and make them feel comfortable about my service offering to help them grow their business. So it doesn't really answer the question. I actually had no idea, but I really enjoy where I am today.
Yeah, well, it's quite reflective because I guess your performance dictates how happy you are in some cases, and things are going pretty well, I can see.
Yeah, it's good fun, yeah.
But well, what is... Look, I guess I've valued crazy things in my life, right? Back in my teaser video, a brothel, a nudist colony, one of or two of many things we valued. But in terms of doing business plans, what is not the craziest thing, but the most interesting thing you've done a plan for?
Most interesting, there's a couple on my list, but for me, currently, it's probably along the lines of something called medicinal marijuana. Now, here I was, silly me, thinking medicinal marijuana illegal. The reason I'm saying medicinal marijuana, because I've now learned that this is actually the correct term to use in Australia. You can't use any other term other than medicinal marijuana. I sound like a broken record right now. But after actually doing business plans for a number of companies across Australia that actually want to or are producing this product. They're producing oils, foods, essentially starting off by pushing the American market because it's a lot more open there. But it's actually broadened my horizon, opened my eyes that this is a product that is actually used by day-to-day Australians. Even in the NDIS, people use this to help with anxiety, to help with pain and things like that. It's just crazy to be doing a business plan on something that I didn't think people did. So yeah, that's probably the craziest thing at the moment. And there's even I'm actually doing. Someone put through a contact form on Google to the business, and I read it. And it's like, we want to start a vertical farm, and I was like, vertical farm, interesting. So I rang them up, and straight away, medicinal marijuana. But I love doing it. It's very interesting.
Yeah, well, sounds interesting. Well, fun fact number 2, we valued a medical cannabis. Once again, can't disclose names, but it did make the newspaper. We got approached by a company and said, hey, we need our business valued because there's going to be a buyout. I'm like, oh, this is going to be fun. So obviously you get out your letter of engagements, and you do your interviews and you complete your site inspections. And then a week later, we get a second phone call saying the reason why they need the valuation is because an ASX listed company is going to be acquiring the shares. And I'm like, ooh, obviously, once again, can't disclose names, but they also ended up valuing the ASX listed company. That's now, awesome. I can tell you a fun fact about that. Me and my fun facts today, but anyways. The medicinal marijuana company was worth 3 times as much as the ASX listed company. Their growth in year 2 was 900%. Their growth in year 3 was 2,000%. Their growth in year 4 doubled that.
I think as a business owner, you're jumping up and down if you had that kind of growth.
Well, let's go back to the term license, right? If you have a license and it's audited correctly, it's maintained well, and all that sort of jazz, I guess you can build something phenomenal. Yeah. But yeah, we made the newspaper for all of that. Not so much AVG. Obviously, it was spoken valuations were done. And yeah, so the ASX listed company paid 3 times out of what they were for this company to acquire it. And as we all know, what that would have done to the share price.
Definitely.
So, yeah.
No, it's exciting things. I think I can see you're passionate about it and excited, and it's definitely an achievement, right? So you as a business owner, you've achieved something that you hadn't before. How does that make you feel, right? It makes you feel awesome.
Amazing. And credibility. And I think that's one thing we didn't touch on is credibility. But there again, it goes back to keeping your word, right? So it's all backed up and everything's backed up.
It's all part of that.
But look, back to this medical marijuana. I like to also throw in a bit of valuation terminology. We valued the medicinal company on their revenue, and in valuation terms, it's called the market value method. It's the most common method used when we value a accounting firm, but I also use this method because this was a startup and their revenue was insane. And the only way I could figure out how to value this company was with this method. And once again, you go through all your research, your documents, deciding where the goodwill is, like back where you said location, right? Location is actually a goodwill component. There are 3 types of goodwill: personal, location, and business. I believe that location is your weakest aspect of goodwill, because should a company get up and leave, get extinguished, they lose the entirety of the business. Your second, most important, is personal. Based on personal relationships, should a business owner leave a business, they take their personal contacts with them, which in turn would leave the business worthless or not as much as it should be. But I believe the most important part of goodwill is called business goodwill. That would mean, like what you would advise your clients, if they left the business for a month and went on holiday, the business would continue running with the same revenue. And that's how we assess the goodwill. And that's also how I would apply that to your multiple/capitalization rate, influence it positively or negatively. So that's how I look at things. And traditionally, the way I valued the ASX listed company was with EBITDA, which is earnings before interest, tax, depreciation, and amortization. And it's relevant to the add backs, normalizing your measure of earnings. And you use your measure of earnings applied to the multiple to come up with the business value. And I guess that's like a little bit like too technical for what we're doing.
I think people were writing down some notes just then.
Yeah,
but,
maybe.
Back to something you mentioned about, I guess, the business goodwill and people being able to leave the business and still generate the same revenue. On an advisory side, that's definitely something that we work towards is business owners generally, as a startup, you need to wear all the hats in the business to be able to actually get it off the ground, because sometimes you don't have all the people in place at the start. But something you build towards an advisory is getting those people in the right place, understanding what they cost to be there, but also generating that revenue. How is that person going to generate revenue for you? How you be able to achieve that 4-week holiday at the end of the year, and still run the business smoothly. It's biggest thing business owners is not being able to take away that micromanagement part, not trying to do everything, but putting trust in your staff as well. And that's also about building a good culture. So
Yeah. Well, I'm going to give you the opportunity to do something in our podcast today. You can ask me one question. And if you can ask me any question, what would it be?
any question, what would it be? If you could do anything tomorrow, what would it be?
Fuck, well, that's a good question. Look, I can't say one thing. Work is my entire life, but I think family is bigger to me, and this is why I do everything I do. So what would I do tomorrow? I wouldn't come into work. I'd get up early and I'd go down with Shay and my dogs, probably down to the Gold Coast for a week. That's probably the one thing I'd do. Although I've just come back from a honeymoon, which might have ignited that.
I know I'm only allowed one question, but take the Gold Coast away. If you could travel anywhere with Shay and the family being the dogs, where would it be in the world? Where would you want to go?
Well, it would be hard to travel with dogs, right?
No, but let's just say open scenario, you can go anywhere with them. First class seats, obviously. Maximus wearing a king's hat, but where would you go?
Probably New Zealand.
Beautiful.
That would be the first place, and I know that we'd all love it. I've been seeing so much stuff about New Zealand, but
yeah, that's awesome.
you know,
that's good. Good answer.
yeah. Well, back to the other way around, right? What's the next big thing for you?
Next big thing. I think you mentioned it actually with holistic care. There's some big projects coming up, especially in property. So that's definitely a big focus at the moment, is growing the holistic care side on the property side. Definitely disability housing, because there's a big issue at the moment with backlogs of people, and trying to find out some solutions for that. So that's the next big thing.
Well, yeah, that I do agree with. Given contacts and people we've made, it's so important that you meet the right people along the journey. And when you do, it just makes things not so much easier, but it opens so many more doors.
Yeah, it does, yeah.
Yeah.
100%.
Have you ever had any legal issues in terms of maybe not signing a certain document, or, well, it could have cost you a big contract in short terms? More so, how important are lawyers in this process?
Yeah, look, legal issues. I think if I didn't have lawyers in place or advisors in place, proposals would not have been as good at the start with business plans, because when you send out a proposal, you're sticking to your word with what's in that. And if you don't write a proposal correctly, write out the terms and conditions of your proposal, people can come back and go, well, you proposed this, so why am I not getting this? Or you propose this and they get out of the contract. So you've got to be very smart about how you do things in business, especially with lawyers. Sticking to your words one thing, but also having it written on a piece of paper that you both sign is another. So lawyers are very important.
And obviously having a lawyer review it, right?
Also, especially with NDAs, because 99% of the business plans or work I do with other business owners, I need to actually sign an NDA, because a lot of this information is sensitive. A lot of the stuff that I do internationally, projects, new technologies, I can't even talk about. I can sort of talk around certain things, fingerprint scanning, stuff like that, but I literally can't talk much more than that, because I've signed an NDA. And we get our lawyer to review that to make sure that it's actually all above board as well. And that's part of the advice I provide to business owners. Sometimes I say, hey, have you got an NDA? No, I just talk about this openly. I'm like, you need to put one in place, because someone can just rip this idea.
Yeah, they can. And I've seen it so many times. So to all the young guys and ladies out there starting a business, and to your current business owners, get an NDA, see your lawyer,
yeah.
You know, bit of jazz like that.
I did say relationships first, maybe NDA first.
Yeah, if it's a bit of a startup, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Now, I guess we're coming to the end of this podcast, Chris. it's just been amazing. Like, I love learning
it's good
about
fun.
business, and, you know, it's a bit of my passion. And the reason why I want to do this podcast is to help other people see what I see through this.
Definitely.
But for the final part of this podcast, I'm going to ask you a question, but it's not going to be a normal question. It's going to be, would you rather? And obviously,
Here we go.
Yeah, I know, right? But yeah,
Keep it PG. Come on.
it's actually going to be relative to something we discussed earlier
all
about time and money.
I'm ready. Hit me. Let's go.
Would you rather time or money?
Definitely time.
Why?
I think I said at the start. Why,
Well, I want to hear it
why
again.
do you perceive value, right? So time, I think you can't take time for granted, especially with family. Things go so quick. People pass away and things like that. Spending time building relationships. I'd definitely take time, because if you have enough time, you make money anyway, right? So
Yeah.
it's made it easy for me. But on a time thing, it's you just can't go past that. So
No.
I was expecting something a bit raunchy, mate. You stitched me up.
I thought I'd be a little bit good.
Okay, that's good.
And I know
Oh, first episode, you gotta.
I gotta keep the anticipation quite high for the next one, right?
Yeah.
But look, just to summarize everything, we spoke about your business plans, your advisory, your side hustles, value, time, money, medicinal marijuana, Chris.
Oh, you got it right. There you go.
Lawyers, contracts, NDAs, and a couple of bits and bobs on how to value a business. But look, on behalf of Asset Valuations Group and the Valuers Corner, I just really want to thank you for coming onto our podcast today. And I'm just sure it's going to shed some light on what you do and how what you do is important in the whole business industry. So, Chris, thank you very much.
No, I appreciate you taking the time to have me on here and talk a bit of shit. So yeah. Anyway,
Thanks,
thank you
mate.
for having me. Cheers.
Thank you.